Part two. Hello. Anyways, sorry about that. So I forgot where I stopped at. So I believe I was talking about um, oh, one of the first replications that just took in place, and Matthew had viewed it for himself. So he thought it was a joke, and he's asking Nancy and Jack like what was really going on. And so, they kind of figure out like they're trying to like imitate him is what it is. So he tries to give Elizabeth a call. She doesn't answer, and so he ends up running over to her place, only to find out that yeah, she was being replicated at the time. So once they realize this, that's when they know like, okay, this is happening like kind of like all over the city, and so Elizabeth's husband Jeffrey, he's obviously being replicated. He's in on it. So they're basically scrambling. Nancy, Jack, Matthew, Elizabeth, literally trying to figure out how they can stop this and put an end to it. But they don't realize how far in advance this has already been taking place. So they're pretty much kind of like what they're trying to accomplish. It's kind of somewhat uh, pointless, but of course they don't know that. So, anyways, the movie goes on, and it just progresses. More people are replicated all over San Francisco to the point where they basically are outnumbered, and they're being pursued, and so the couple decides to split up. They go off into their own separate ways, separate directions, which they do meet up later. They meet back up at the office of where Matthew and Elizabeth work. And so they find out where they're trying to like hide out, but then Matthew, not Matthew, but Jack and the psychiatrist, basically they've already been replicated. So they give Matthew and Elizabeth a sedative, which pretty much is going to make him sleep. You find out that's how they actually do the replication. They pretty much kind of like make them sleep, have them sleep, and then that's when the pod does its thing, and then replicates the body. So the psychiatrist pretty much kind of explains it as you're replicated, but your subconscious is basically transferred over into the new body. So it looks like you, talks like you, to a certain degree, acts like you in a way, but then ultimately you're not you anymore. You're actually what's left is a shriveled up version of you, and which is no more. So, but you don't see that take place until like later on, which is probably one of the most sad and hideous scenes in the movie. So, anyways, Matthew and Elizabeth make their way out of the building. Well, they run into Nancy. How they were actually able to escape, Matthew fought back. He locked the psychiatrist in a freezer and ultimately ended up killing Jack in the process. So they run into Nancy in the hallway, and how Nancy was, he was just kind of standing there like kind of just staring at him. So Matthew and Elizabeth don't know if this is really her, and then she ends up letting them know like the way that you can fool them or trick them is to not show any emotion. So she's asking like, well, where's Jack? We gotta find him. Matthew didn't tell her that he just killed her husband, but they're like, yeah, we gotta get out of here. We gotta find a way out. So they try to leave, and when they're leaving, by this time, literally most of San Francisco has been taken over. So like literally, you see people going to pick up pods throughout the rest of the city. You can't even get out of the city. The city pretty much is on lockdown. So as they're trying to figure out a way to get out of the city, they do get separated once again, and Matthew and Elizabeth are trying to figure out how they're going to get out of the city. Well, they go down to like this waterfront area where he sees a like a freight a freighter boat. He figures they can get out on the boat and get out. So he kind of like leaves her behind because I think she like twisted her ankle pretty bad. So he lays her down, goes over to where the pier is, only to find out they're transferring the pods by the boats as well. And so he's just like, oh man. So it's like it pretty much kind of like dashed his last hope to try to get out of the city. So he goes back to her. It's too late. She's been replicated that quick. And so, he ends up, running away. She's trying to like tell him the replication, trying to tell him like, it's okay. You won't feel a thing. It won't hurt. And he's like, no. So he runs away. He goes into the warehouse where they seem to be like harvesting all these replication pods. And he's going to try to destroy it all by himself. So he makes an attempt, to a certain degree. He destroys some of them. But ultimately, he gets pursued by everybody that's in the warehouse. And so he runs away and tries to hide. And the next day, it shows him back at work. And he's just, going about his day. You see Elizabeth there, and she's like running some kind of test on one of the machines. And so he's in the room, and this is back, like I said, this is back at their job, the health department. And so he stands there, he just looks at her, and then he goes back to his area where he's like doing newspaper clippings. And then he ends up going for a walk. Everybody seems to leave at the same time, which is just kind of like, it's like single file. You don't hear an alarm or anything or a bell go off, but everybody just kind of like gets up and leaves at the same time. They're all walking out on the elevator, but it's just like one person after another. Nobody's talking. That's the other thing. Nobody's talking this last part of the movie. So he's walking outside, and then he hears this voice, Matthew, Matthew. He turns around, and it's Nancy. And she just kind of stands there for a little bit. And then she smiles, and she walks up to him. And then he just like, he points his finger. This is something that they do to, like, I guess you would say, weed out the imposters. He points at her and just starts this horrible shrieking sound. And she's just like, she goes hysterical. She's just like, oh my God. And that's pretty much how the movie ends. And that let you know that they ended up replicating him after all. So I like this movie because it kind of like was like, what would happen if, something like that ever, did happen on Earth? How long would it actually take for people to get taken over or replicated or whatever you want to call it? So would I make it? Yeah, I'd make it. I would make it. There's strength in numbers. And I don't understand why people do this in the movies, but I know that's probably how it's written in the script. But strength in numbers. There's no reason to split up. Like, there was a group of 4, Well, I think where he went wrong, and this is Matthew's fault, where he went wrong was, he called the police. That didn't work because he found out, the police are in on it. And then he said he had a friend at the Justice Department who he tries to call. Well, they didn't have caller ID. They didn't have caller ID back then. But like there was this part where he does this phone call, and he's like, "Yes, I need to file a report." And they're like, "Yes, Mister." And he's like, "Wait a minute. How did you know my name? I didn't tell you my name." There's nothing you can do at that point except for try to get out of the city as soon as possible and get away. So the boat idea I thought that was the best idea to do it. But the problem is because that freighter had the pods on it, obviously you don't want to do that. So you just take like a little miniature boat, and considering how they were in San Francisco, go to Alcatraz, hide out there for a little while. Granted, you ain't got no food or anything, but you could figure out a better plan because obviously the longer they stayed in the city, the worse it got. And it was like pretty much I had nowhere else to run. So that would have been my strategy. I would definitely have kept the group together, and we would have got down to the waterfront somehow. We would have found a boat. If not on the waterfront, because if the waterfront was too crowded, people had there's lakes There's lakes and all over, so you can find someone from someone's house. Well, I hate to say it, but find someone's house who has a boat. Hop on that boat, hightail it up out of there. So that would have been my strategy. That's how I would have made it. So hope you guys liked the video. Sorry about the 2 parts, but hope you liked the video. Comment, subscribe, share, and don't forget to leave comments as well. So until next time, I will talk to you guys later. Have a great day. Have a blessed day, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.